Hi, my name is Julia Talley. I'm a graduating senior from the University of North Florida. I actually graduate in 2 weeks, and I'm interviewing for the position of Audit Associate at Ennis Pelham and Associates. So right now I'm working at Starbucks. I begin my master's program this August, starting around August 27th. I'll begin my Master's of Accounting at Florida Atlantic University online, and at the same time I'll be pursuing my CPA certification. I'm also getting married this December, which is really exciting. My fiance and I have been together for 5 years, so we're super excited about that. And he'll be starting PA school, so the good thing about auditing is that I know I'll be able to be pretty mobile. So that's always a good thing. So what are my strengths? I would consider my strengths to be my perfectionism, my organization, and my coachability. My perfectionism, I would definitely attribute that to growing in my internship with EY. And related to accounting, that internship, I was required to make a lot of spreadsheets, such as audit lead sheets, and also SEC reporting documents. And so the important thing about being a perfectionist with those documents is that obviously you have to be very detail oriented. You have to pay attention to even the last T being crossed and the last I being dotted, especially when you're dealing with regulatory information. It has to be correct. It has to be double checked. Obviously in auditing, every work paper has to tie out to the other work papers, and so being a perfectionist definitely comes in handy when you're in the auditing profession. Excuse me. I consider myself to be very organized. This is something that I've grown in working at Starbucks, and also being organized with my time. So at Starbucks we have a position called customer support, and in this position you're required to run through a cadence of different tasks. And so the important thing in this role is that if you mismanage your time, or if you're not organized in the order in which you're approaching these tasks, you will easily fall behind. I've come in and I've seen the dishes piled up to the ceiling almost, and I've seen the espresso machines running out of beans. I've seen the ice pitcher empty, all because someone decided to focus on one thing instead of going through the entire cadence, and their organization failed. So this is something I've definitely learned how to improve upon in my position at Starbucks. Also, coachability. I consider coachability to be one of my strengths because as an athlete all through middle school, high school, and even into college, I've been told that coachability is a strength of mine. I take advice and I act on it, and I don't waste time. That's one of my most memorable conversations I've ever had with a coach, is that he said, "Julia, you're one of the most coachable athletes I've ever had. You simply take what I have to say and you run with it and you improve and you succeed." And this is something that's continued on into the workplace, and athletics has taught me. I've seen that in my job at Starbucks, in 3 short months, working in such a fast-paced environment, I've caught on quickly. Same thing in my auditing internship. It was only 3 short months out of a very long career that I have ahead of me, but in observing what was going on around me, in taking it all in, and listening to the feedback I was receiving, I was able to then improve upon my own skills and be a better asset to the company. Now, going to my weaknesses, I would consider one of my strengths to also be my weaknesses. Perfectionism is a weakness, for sure, as much as it is a strength. Perfectionism has led me to have anxiety about being perfect. It's led me to taking too long to accomplish tasks. For example, in my internship with Ernst & Young, one of the very first things I did was make a lead sheet for current assets. And it took me about 6 hours to make this lead sheet when it should have taken me about 30 minutes. And yes, I'd never done it before, but at the same time they were like, well, you really didn't need to make sure that everything was absolutely perfect at this point, because it's the way it works, it's the very first sheet that you make in the series of work papers. And so by me taking that extra time and expense to complete that, and me taking all the extra time in general to complete that, made me learn that perfectionism is an asset in the accounting world, but it's not necessarily the end-all be-all, because we need to be efficient as well. I would definitely consider myself to be a team player. In the audit world, we know that we're divided into audit teams, and these teams are often diverse. These teams are different on every client that we're on. You might be with one or two of the same people, but generally, you're working in a different environment. You have to be a team player in order to succeed. I remember there was one audit team that I immediately just got along with them all super well during my internship. Then my last client I was on, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't like this team. But at the end of the day, you have to be a team player, and your end goal is the same. You have to play along. It needs to get done. Also, at Starbucks, it's an extremely team-oriented environment. We cannot get half the things that we get done if we weren't all working together. Communication is so key, and I've learned to be a more effective communicator because of my job as a barista at Starbucks. Also, a situation where I've had to adjust quickly to changes over which I had no control also happened at Starbucks. We have recently been in the news for having labor shortages and labor cuts, but at the same time we've been introducing new item after new item after new item, and there's simply not enough labor, and there's not really enough know-how in order to catch up with all of this. And so as baristas, we're expected to adjust quickly to this. We're expected to react. And if you don't react and you don't adjust, you get disciplined and you get reprimanded. It doesn't matter if the new drink came out that morning. You're supposed to know how to make it, and you're supposed to know how to make it efficiently. And this is something that I've probably struggled with, especially being new to the environment, because sometimes I wouldn't even know how to make the simple version, let alone this new one. And so my manager sat me down and he said, there's some sort of disconnect here. What is going on? And I said, it's just because it's all new to me. And he says, well, you need to make sure that you have this working for you. You need to always make sure that you're paying attention to the multiple things happening at once so that you can be more efficient. And so that was a situation where I had to learn how to adjust, and I had to learn how to adjust quickly. Going into what kind of supervisor I work best under, it's maybe not necessarily my Starbucks supervisor right now. He tends to focus more on what I'm doing wrong than the things that I do right. And so I really enjoy constructive criticism, and I enjoy feedback from my supervisors because it's essential to improving. But having the supervisor only focus on the negative is not something that I thrive well with, because it really is discouraging to me and kind of leads me into having a negative attitude. And that's something that I can adjust in myself, of course, but the type of supervisor in my ideal world is someone who encourages me, but also at the same time admonishes me for the things that I need to improve upon. And then, as humans, we always have to work with difficult other humans. Recently in school, I was put into a group project where the entire class was basically a group project. And there was one member of our 5-member team who always seemed to clash with the rest of the group, and especially clashed with me. So to me, this was an extremely difficult person. It seemed like everything that I said, he would contradict or disagree with it. And every time he said something, of course, I would disagree with it because I had this way of thinking that I thought was right. And so the way I handled that situation was I eventually learned to back off, and I learned to let him say his piece. And instead of me personally trying to hash out my differences with this person and kind of like pounce on him at everything that he said, I let the team and the rest of the team handle that and make those decisions and judge whether they thought that it was sound. Because to me, this person didn't do the research enough, and I, being the perfectionist that I am, wanted everything to be perfect and done my way. But this was a situation where I learned that I just had to step back and let the rest of the team make the decisions and trust them. And that's definitely a big part of teamwork, is that sometimes you have to realize that you're not the right one and that the rest of the team is, and you've just got to trust them, and trust is a big part of teamwork. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you.